Alright, so picture this, 7 a.m. on a Friday, and the queen of the lake herself is stomping across my dock in a pair of stiletto heels that cost more than my first car, screaming at the top of her lungs about my illegal boat, while she's literally trespassing on my property. She's waving a cease and desist letter around like it's a sword, jabbing those blood-red nails right at my '87 Chris Craft, my pride and joy, which I'd spent years restoring after inheriting the place from my uncle. This rust bucket is gone by Friday, Sterling, or I'm calling my lawyer and the sheriff, she screeches. You ever have someone try to steal your property, right to your face, and act like you're the criminal? Yeah, that happened. And here's the best part. Every drop of the so-called community lake she kept screeching about, all 47 acres of it, mine. But you know what? Bullies love to spell out exactly how they're going to self-destruct. So I just sipped my coffee, smiled, and let Karen dig herself a grave big enough to fit all her HOA career dreams. If you've ever had an HOA try to rob you blind, drop a comment. And tell me where you're watching from. I want to hear your worst HOA horror story. Let me back up a sec. How did a retired Army logistics guy like me end up in a standoff with the suburban Marie Antoinette? I'm Marcus Sterling, 52. I did my time. 25 years, Army logistics, counting beans, shipping tanks, putting out bureaucratic fires until I finally wised up and retired to the mountains. My uncle Theodore, rest his soul, left me this little cabin tucked on a lake in Colorado. Place wasn't much, 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, kitchen straight out of 1972, but the view? Worth $1 million. Mist floating off still water at dawn, loons calling back and forth, pine trees so thick you could barely see your neighbor. Real peace for the first time in my life. 12 homes ring the lake. Most folks just want quiet. Or so I thought, until Karen Whitmore moved in 3 houses down. White BMW, whiter teeth, a real estate license, and the attitude to match. Married to some city council hopeful. Within 2 weeks, she was president of the HOA, which is pretty easy when you're the only one desperate for the title. First time we met, I was elbow deep in my boat's engine, grease everywhere, and she totters down the dock in her designer heels and hits me with the classic. Oh, you're the military man? Hope you know we have standards around here. You know what I mean? That phrase just drips with condescension. But I brushed it off. Next thing I know, the boat's too big. Too loud. Doesn't fit her vision for the community. Never mind half the docks have boats just as large, and mine's the prettiest thing out there. Karen decided I was the problem, and Karen always gets her way. Or so she thought. That first violation notice hit on a Tuesday. Crisp letterhead, legal threats, $200 a day fines. Oversized recreational vessel violates community aesthetic standards, per Covenant 14.7b. Here's what military life teaches you. Don't react, gather intel. So I started digging. Who was Karen, really? What didn't I know about my uncle's land? Because logistics is all about knowing more than your opponent. And I had a hunch Karen wasn't as prepared as she liked to think. 3 days later, she calls a midday emergency HOA meeting. The classic play, schedule it when nobody can show up except her little fan club. I walk into her living room. Looks like a Scandinavian furniture showroom exploded, all white leather and glass. And there's Karen, her husband Derek hiding in the corner, and a couple of retirees who'd agree the sky is green if she said so. She fires up a PowerPoint, 20 slides, all about my boat. Photos from every unflattering angle. Mr. Sterling's vessel, she says it like it's a disease, exceeds our size restrictions and disturbs the peaceful character of our lake. I just sit there, taking notes in my old green deployment notebook. My old sergeant used to say, never interrupt someone who's digging their own grave. Just pass them a bigger shovel. When she's done, I politely ask, ma'am, I've read the covenants twice. Where exactly does it say anything about boat length? She stammers something about implied standards. I point out Derek's got 2 jet skis and a cigarette boat that, combined, are bigger than mine. Suddenly, Derek's sweating bullets. Here's the kicker. I had just come from City Hall. Derek's dock extension? Never filed for a permit. That's a municipal code violation right there. The look on Karen's face, priceless. And then in walks Betty, 73, ex-high school English teacher, armed with a tray of snickerdoodles and 40 years of busting arrogant kids down to size. She leans in and says, Theodore kept all kinds of papers in that basement, legal docs, surveys, you name it. The flash of panic on Karen's face. That was my sign. She knew she was bluffing, and she'd just been called. Meeting ends in a draw, but now I'm smelling rain in the air. A storm's brewing. A week later, Karen sends the city inspector after me. Guy named Rodriguez. Clipboard, tired eyes, anonymous tip about dock violations. Karen's watching from her BMW, phone glued to her ear. Rodriguez spends 2 hours measuring, poking around, and finally says, "Everything's up to code. Better than code." As he leaves, he mutters, "Usually these calls mean someone's got a personal vendetta." That afternoon, I find a petition taped to my door. 7 signatures, all Karen's crew, calling me an unstable element with temporary military benefits. That was a new low, even for her. The neighborhood starts buzzing. Karen is telling people I'm unstable, a PTSD case, and my boat's compensation for psychological issues. Now it's war. So I dig deeper. Turns out Derek's been siphoning HOA funds to his brother's landscaping company, $18,000, over 2 years. And Karen? Real estate license complaints for misrepresentation and aggressive tactics. That night, Phil, contractor, built half the docks around here, knocks on my door with beers. He tells me Karen tried to pay him to find something wrong with my dock, and she's asking around about my uncle's legal affairs, water rights, property lines. Now the basement's calling my name. Emma, my daughter, college senior, catches wind of all this. Karen even reached out to her on Facebook, spinning stories about my adjustment issues. That's when I decide enough is enough. Emma and I set up camp in Theodore's basement, wading through boxes of documents, and bingo, a folder labeled Lake Acquisition 1962 to 1978. My uncle didn't just buy lakefront property, he bought the whole lake. Water rights, navigation, the whole 9 yards. Every other house. They own up to the water line. Everything beyond, all 47 acres, belongs to me. My lawyer, Jennifer Patel, just about loses her mind when she sees the documents. "You're not dealing with an HOA complaint, Marcus," she says. "You're dealing with 30 years of trespassing on your private property." Now we start playing chess while Karen's stuck on checkers. She keeps escalating. Lawyer letters, media campaigns, even gets Channel 9 News to run a piece painting me as a dangerous vet terrorizing the neighborhood. But every time she opens her mouth about community waters, she's digging the hole deeper. Phil's contractor buddies find out Derek's been faking property lines on his dock permits, and Karen's shopping for houses in Durango. Guess she knows the writings on the wall. Betty rallies the neighbors. Emma tracks Karen's smear campaign online, and my legal team stacks up 4 decades of proof. Karen finally calls an emergency board meeting, full dog and pony show, stenographer, lawyer, local officials, TV news. She plans to humiliate me, not knowing she's about to get the schooling of her life. She starts her performance, lawyer by her side, accusing me of violating every rule in the book. My turn. I stand up, thank everyone for their time, and calmly lay out the deeds, maps, legal surveys. This lake isn't a community resource. I own it. Every drop, every dock, every fishing spot. By rights, I could shut it all down right now. The silence is absolute. Karen's face goes from smug to ash gray in 3 seconds. Jennifer explains, point by point, that Karen and her cronies have spent years trespassing, threatening, and abusing authority they never even had. You could hear a pin drop. Karen tries to sputter. "But we've used this for years." And Sarah, my retired Army JAG friend, jumps in, by the grace of Theodore Sterling. Permission that's now revoked. It's over. Karen resigns within 24 hours. For sale sign in her yard by the end of the week. Betty gets elected HOA president and makes her first official act a public apology. But the real win? We turn Theodore's legacy into the Sterling Memorial Conservation Fund, funding environmental law scholarships, running veterans fishing tournaments, organizing cleanup days and barbecues. The lake's protected forever, access guaranteed, community finally at peace. And Karen? She tries her old tricks in her new town, but word's gotten around. No more HOA queen for her. Justice isn't always about revenge. It's about building something better, something lasting. So every night I sit on my dock, coffee in hand, watching the sun set over water that'll be protected for another 60 years, knowing my uncle's quiet genius beat every bully at their own game. Now, If you made it this far, tell me your HOA nightmare in the comments. What's the worst power trip you've survived? Hit like if this story gave you chills, and don't forget to subscribe. Next week, the HOA that tried to evict a veteran service dog. Yeah, you don't want to miss how that turned out.